Alright guys, so today we're going to be looking at how to create this color wheel using pointillism style, using only the primary colors. So we have yellow, we have red, and blue. Those are the three primary colors. Um, we're going to do one family at a time, and we're going to go yellow and red to make our oranges. We're going to go red and blue to make our violets, and yellow and blue to make our greens. And we're going to do it optically. So we're going to be using dots, and we're going to control the number of dots to suggest new colors. Okay, so let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to do one family, and once you know how to do one family, you'll be able to do all of the rest of them the same way. Okay, so let's go ahead and start with the we'll start with the orange family. So for orange, we're going to use yellow and red. So move these out of the way. Since we're doing pointillism, we're going to be doing everything with dots. And we're going to be mixing our colors optically, meaning we're going to be putting pure color next to each other and letting our eyes do the mixing for us. So the first step is simply to start putting in the dots for the yellow. So I'm going to go ahead and start putting in this nice yellow color and filling in this entire segment here. Now this is different than stippling. Okay. In stippling, what we're doing is we're controlling the values by how far apart or how close together the dots are. In pointillism, what we're actually doing is we're actually creating color mix. We're doing color mixing. So we're going to try to create new colors by placing the colors next to each other and letting our eyes do the mixing for us. Okay. So when you are doing pointillism, you don't want a bunch of the white paper showing through. So you really want to get in here and put in a lot of dots. It's okay for some of the dots to touch each other, but don't put them so close that you're starting to get globs. So you have to kind of monitor, but we want this to look yellow. We don't want to see too much of the white. Now I would do the same thing with the other two primary colors. So I would do the blue and the red exactly the same way, because those are primaries. That means you are not going to be adding any colors to them. They are your primary colors, so all of the other colors will be made from them. Okay, so that's yellow. Now let's go ahead and move over to here, orange. If we're doing orange, you want about equal number of yellow and equal number of red. Okay, so that's a secondary color. Okay, so if it's a secondary color, you're going to have approximately the same number of each color. Okay. So let's take a look. Let's go ahead and put this in. And again, I'm going to fill this up pretty good so I don't have a whole bunch of white showing. Then I'm going to do the same thing with the red. And from a distance, our eyes should see orange. You do have to be a little bit patient with this, okay? Because you know it's easy to get sloppy and start doing tick marks and moving the marker and lose that nice pointillism effect. Now we're going to do this with markers just because it's easier to learn the concept. But this is probably more commonly done with paint. So if you look at the works of George Seurat, for example, his pointillism strokes were all done with paints and brushes. Okay. So now, in order to make it look like an orange, what I want to do is I want to take red and I'm going to apply roughly the same number of dots. You don't have to sit there and count them, but roughly you want to put in about the same number of dots so that you have equal amount of yellow and an equal amount of red showing up. And if you can do that, then your eyes will see orange from a distance. Remember, you have to back this away in order to really see the colors. Up close, you're mostly just going to see dots. So stop once in a while, hold it back. So like right now, I'm looking at it and it looks like I have too much yellow showing. So I'm going to keep adding more of the red. Now I have to be careful as I do this when I'm adding additional reds that I don't like glop things up. So I don't want to like put the dots like right on top of each other. Okay, that's starting to look better. And you can do this with any size markers that you have. Sometimes I use the broader tip markers because the dots will be bigger and it goes a little faster, but it's also much more pronounced than these little itty bitty dots. Okay, so that's starting to look like a pretty good orange right now. So now I'm just going to add a little bit more of the red. And remember, you don't want a bunch of white showing, so if you see too much white, add either more red or more yellow depending on what you need. So that looks pretty good right there, I think. Okay, so that looks orange to me. Okay. So next we're going to move over to the tertiary colors. A tertiary color is created when a primary and a secondary color are mixed. Now, whatever the first name is in that color, like in this case yellow, that tells you what the dominant color is going to be. So yellow-orange means that there's going to be more yellow and less orange or less red. Okay, so I'm going to start by filling this up with quite a bit of yellow because yellow is going to be the dominant color for yellow-orange. So again, I'm putting the dots pretty close together. I'm trying not to put them like directly on top of each other, but I don't want to see a bunch of the white paper showing through. I'm just going to continue this. Now when you're doing your dots, you want to try to keep them random. One of the problems that I see that students often do is they start doing this and then they start creating patterns, and you can actually see those patterns in the finished product, and we don't want to see the patterns, not for this. Okay, we want things to look random. All we're worried about is how our colors are perceived. So in this case, I want to see more of a yellow-orange, where here I want to see orange, there pure yellow, and so forth and so on. So that looks pretty good there. Now I'm going to switch over to the red. Now, because yellow-orange has a lot more yellow than red, we're going to start putting in the red, but we're going to start spacing them further than these right here, so that yellow becomes the more dominant color. So if I were to do this mathematically, this would be 2 parts yellow to 1 part red, this would be 1 part yellow to 1 part red, and then this would be all yellow and this would be all red. Okay. And this would be 2 parts red to 1 part yellow. But again, we're just estimating. We're not going to sit there and count the number of dots that we're actually putting on here. But from time to time, make sure that you step back and take a look at it. Because remember, we're doing this optically, so you need to look at it from a a bit of a distance and check it. At least a couple of feet. You don't have to like go across the room, but a couple of feet. Okay, so when I look at this right here, this actually looks pretty good. You can see that this looks lighter than this, but it's darker than this. Okay, so there's definitely a yellow-orange going on here. There are some areas where I'm going to add in a few dots just to balance it a little bit more. But that's really all there is to it. It's a excuse me. It's a relatively easy method of controlling your colors because you're working with dots, with one little dot at a time. So you can always add more dots. Okay. So there's the yellow, yellow, orange, and orange. Now for red, we're going to do the opposite of this one. We're going to go 2 parts red to 1 part yellow. So in this case, I'm going to go ahead and start with the red. And I'm going to put quite a bit of red in here. Not pure red, because that would be this one, but quite a bit. And notice that I hold the paper down with my other finger. When you start putting these dots, sometimes the paper moves up and down a little bit on you. I'm still doing it a little bit, and that can create like little smudges. So hold your paper down when you're working with the dots so that you don't get like a spring back and create smudges where you don't want them. Because you do want to do this relatively neat. It doesn't have to be perfect, but you do want to show control. You don't want a bunch of like tick marks or little X's or something like that, because you'll lose the effect if you do that. Okay, so I'm going to check that, and I'm going to add the yellow, and then if I need to, I'll add more red. So that looks pretty good there. Now I'm going to switch over to the yellow. Now I'm going to start putting in the yellow, kind of like in between the red. Remember, we don't want a ton of the white showing through. In fact, if I was doing this with paints, I probably wouldn't have any of the white canvas showing through. But with markers, it's okay to have some white showing through. Again, you have to back up a little bit and check it. So I can see already that this is actually looking pretty good, but I'm probably, in all likelihood, add just a little bit more red to it because it looks similar to that orange that we have right now. So I want to make it more to the red side. Very easy process. Okay. What I would recommend is that you do one family of colors at a time. So yellow and red make up all of your oranges. Then you go from red to blue to make up all of your violets, and then you can go to yellow to, or excuse me, red to blue makes up all of your violets, and yellow and blue make up all of your greens. And then when we get ready for the brown, you're just going to use all 3 of your primary colors together in about equal proportion. So you're going to need quite a bit of each one. And it's not going to be a true brown, but it is going to look dark and kind of neutral. And it will give you a pretty good, from afar, it'll look like a fairly decent brown. Alright, so I'm looking at that. That looks pretty good. There's a couple of little areas here where I'm seeing a little bit more yellow than I want, so I'm going to add in a few more dots. And there's a few areas where I'm seeing a little bit too much white, so I'm going to add just a little bit more yellow. Okay, so when I step back, right now I'm looking at it from about 2 feet. It looks pretty good. This looks to the red side, this looks neutral, this looks to the yellow side, and then this is all yellow. Okay. So now for red, I'm going to do the same thing that I did here. I'm just going to fill up this entire circle with red, which is a primary. Again, nice and close. Minimize the amount of white that is showing through. I'm going to try to keep my hands out of the way because I'm getting some shadows, but you get the idea. Keep this nice and loose. Try not to create any patterns, and try not to have too much white paper showing. Later on, we're going to be doing this technique using paints instead of markers. So we're going to more than likely be using Q-tips as an applicator so that we can control the dots. It's a very, very cool effect. You can't get it any other way by mixing colors, because in this case your eyes are doing the mixing for you, because it's all optical. It's like an optical illusion. Up close you see dots, but far away you see colors, the changing of the colors. So this looks pretty good. It looks pretty red. There is a little bit of white showing, so I'm going to go ahead and start hitting some of these areas again and again and again until I get it pretty much the way I want it. I don't want to lose the dots, so you have to be careful not to like stack them so tight that they just look like one big glob. You still want to see the effect of the pointillism. Okay, so that's how the first family is done. So you have yellow plus red, and then 2 parts yellow to 1 part red for the yellow orange, equal amounts of yellow and red for the orange, 2 parts red to 1 part yellow for the red orange, and then pure red. Okay, you're going to do the same thing on this one. So in this case, yellow, green is your secondary, so use equal amounts of yellow and blue. Here you're going to use 2 parts yellow to 1 part blue, and here you're going to use 2 parts blue to 1 part yellow. Okay, so I'm going to pause the video there, and I'm going to finish out the outer part, and then I'll come back and show you how to do the center. Alright, so now that we have all of the primary, secondary, and tertiary colors done, let's go ahead and move into the centerpiece, which is the brownish color. And that's going to be done using all 3 primaries in about equal proportions. Okay? So, because markers are see-through for the most part, I like to start off with the light colors and then build them up gradually. So I'm going to go ahead and start with the yellow, and I'm going to fill this in with yellow. Then I'm going to go to the red, and then finally finish it up with the blue. So very similar to what I did with the other ones, I don't want a ton of white showing. So these dots are going to be pretty close together. But remember, we got 2 more colors to add to this, so I don't want to like make them so tight that there's no room for the new colors. After this, I'm going to show you a couple of common mistakes that you want to avoid when you're doing pointillism. And then we'll be done with this assignment. On our next assignment, we are actually going to be applying what you are learning here. So just gotta be patient with this. keep everything nice and random. Okay, so that's pretty good with the yellow. So now let's add red. Okay, so yellow and red make like an orangey color, which means that if we use the opposite, so the opposite of orange is blue, that will neutralize some of the orange and make it appear brown. Right? If I would have done red and blue, that makes a violet, and the opposite of violet is yellow. So again, that makes a brown. So the easiest way to remember your complementary colors is whatever color you're making, whatever two colors you're using to make your color, the color that's left out is its complement. So since yellow and blue make green, red is left out, so red is the complement of green. So that's pretty good there. So it should appear kind of orangey. Right now it looks a little on the yellow side, so I'm going to add some more red. I want it to look kind of like orange. And then we're going to start adding in the blue. Now I can always add more of each if I need to. So you do have to check it from time to time. So step back, give your eyes a rest, and then look at it from, oh, I don't know, approximately 6 feet away is a good bet. That'll really tell you what's going on. That'll really show you what's going on. Okay, so there's the yellow and the red. So I have what appears to be orange on the screen. Now for the blue. So now with the blue being the darkest, it's going to dominate everything. So we don't want to lose the red and the yellow. You don't want to lose all of it, I should say. Yes, you're going to lose some of it, but you don't want to lose all of it. Try as much as you can to hit those white spots right in between. And see how it looks darker already? Now if it looks too violet, then we add more yellow. If it looks too green, we add more red. If it looks too orange, we add more blue. So, and it's not going to be a true brown, especially not with the markers, because the colors are see-through for one. But it will definitely look darker than everything else on the wheel. And that's our goal. Without losing the dots, without losing the pointillism effect. Because it would be easy for me to just fill this in, but then I wouldn't get the effect. So I think I want to add more red for sure, and possibly more yellow. I see a lot of yellow, but I don't see enough red. So, and I'm seeing some white, so I'm going to go ahead and throw in more red. There we go. It's starting to look better, starting to look darker. Get rid of some of that white. Now we're doing this with the basic color wheel so that you can see how all primary, secondary, and tertiary colors are done. But and when we work with paints, you'll actually be able to do this with any other colors, and you can also add black and white to create tints and shades and tones of any color on here. So, but for the basic color wheel, this is a really good way to understand how what primary colors are, how secondary colors are made from the primaries, and how tertiary colors are made from the primaries. Okay, I think I'm going to leave it right about there. That looks pretty good. Nice and dark. There's not too much red, not too much blue, not too much yellow showing. Nothing that's dominating, so they're about equal. Okay. So, common mistakes. Let me get a new sheet of paper real quick. I'll be right back. Alright, so let's talk about some of the common mistakes in pointillism. Mistake number one, getting sloppy. Instead of putting in night dots that are relatively uniform, I'll see students get lazy and they'll start doing this. That's not the effect we're looking for. Okay, two problems with that. It's hard to control, and number two, by hitting it that hard, you're probably going to damage the tip. So you don't need a lot of pressure when you're working with the markers, especially when they're brand new, because there's plenty of ink in there, so you just touch the paper. That's all. Okay, so that's problem number one, is getting sloppy. Problem number two, putting the dots so close together that you just get blobby and you don't really see the dots anymore. You just see bigger dots. Okay, so this is problem number two. So problem number one here, problem number two there. Problem number three is putting the colors on top of each other rather than next to each other. So for example, I'll start with the yellow. If I go in here and I put these here, the idea is we want to get in between these spots as much as we can. If you just start putting in, especially when you're working with these transparent colors, if you put the dots directly on top of what you have already, you're making a new color rather than doing it optically. Okay, so we don't want to mix a new color on the paper. We want our eyes to do the mixing for us. So you want to avoid this. See, like I'm just going over the same dots. Well, you lose the effect. So this is bad. Okay, so that's bad. What you want is you want to get as much as possible. You want to get the dots in between so that you're seeing both, in this case, both the colors, both the yellow and the blue. Okay, regardless of how many colors you're working with, you want to be able to see them all. Okay. And then I think the last one is this. When students do this, I see this happen all the time. And they get into a rhythm, they get into a pattern, and you lose that. You lose the effect because now your eyes are starting to see patterns. Okay, you want to look. These need to be spontaneous. They need to look more unorganized, more random, like so. So avoid the old making patterns. Okay. And that's pretty much it. Okay. So to close it out, when you're doing this exercise, remember you're only going to be working with the three primary colors, first of all. Second of all, you are going to do one family at a time. So your yellow and your red, there we go. Your yellow and your red will make up all of your oranges. Your red and your blue will make up all of your violets or purples. And your yellow and your blue, well, I think I said that backwards. Your blue and your reds will make up all of your violets. And your yellow and your blue will make up all of your greens. Okay? Make sure that you're doing this fairly neatly so that you can actually see the colors changing. Back this up a little so you can see it better. And make sure that you can distinctly see each color, so you can see yellow, yellow, orange, orange, red, and so forth and so on. And of course the brown color needs to appear to be the darkest. Okay? And that's it. So I would recommend do the primaries first, then pick one family to work. When you're done with that family, go on to the next family. When you're done with that family, go on to the next family. And then do your brown section last. Okay? Alright, that's all I got. Thanks for watching. In the next assignment, we will be putting this to use by actually creating a miniature painting using pointillism effects.